Hello everyone, welcome to Darren McGarvey's Comment People, and today we're just going to do a wee Ask Me Anything question sesh. Sometimes we're a bit hectic here and with a lot of commitments going on, there's not always the time to put the proper prep in to having the old deep dive on a topic, which is where you come in. We shout you out on social media to send us in some questions, and then I'll do my best to answer them off the cuff. So the first question is about artificial intelligence, which is a big talking point right now. We're seeing a lot of scare stories about the dangers of AI in terms of how it's going to impact the labour market, how it might impact even things like national security and geopolitical stability. But then we're also seeing positive takes, which is, you know, as long as we tell it what to do, this technology could maybe eventually come up with cures for serious illnesses like cancer. It could help us to advance on many other fronts, you know, whether it be like space travel. And so it's difficult sometimes to make sense of what this technology really means. My take on it really is I'm already seeing the impact of it. I remember a few months back, I was starting to see these images appearing on social media, which were quite, captivating in terms of the quality of them. And sometimes they would be blending together like random elements, like say it was like Batman, but he was elderly sitting in a bar somewhere. And I was looking at it, I was like, wow, who drew that? And then I would see more and more. And then I realized they all had a similar kind of style. Which was, it never looked like a kind of photorealistic image, and it never looked like it was kind of hand-drawn or painted. It had a sort of CGI type of kind of quality to it, but was still very interesting. And I remember somebody messaging me, sending me something on social media, which was a kind of image of Loki, right? The Norse god Loki, the kind of alias that I perform hip-hop under. And I remember thinking, oh, do you do that? Cool, maybe you could do some artwork for me. And what I didn't realise was this person was just using an AI, telling it, you know, let's have a picture of Loki sitting on a seat in an abandoned house, and then it would just generate it. And I remember just thinking, man, that's mental. And then I seen people keep on sharing these images, and I started thinking, hang on, this actually impacts me, because often for projects, whether it's albums, tours, assets for different things, I'll employ a local artist to produce a poster for me or a logo for me, and then this AI thing basically gives me the ability to just create that myself. And so it was an example of something that went from being this intangible discussion that seemed to exist in the world of TED Talks and high-minded podcasting to straight away being something that was right there on the doorstep. And so I think this really does speak to the rapid acceleration of the technology itself and how ubiquitous it's going to become really soon. I haven't used it for anything specific other than customized stories for my kids. So I can tell it to tell a story that includes the name Daniel and Lily, maybe some themes, a rough plot line. I remember telling it to tell a story that was trying to encourage them to eat their lunch, and that not eating was causing me a lot of stress. And it came up with this story about how like I exploded, like physically exploded, and how this was a moral lesson for the kids. The explosion, apparently, according to ChatGPT, could be heard from miles around. So there are obviously fairly innocuous uses for it. Then I've considered, how else could I use it? Could I use it to come up with an outline for a book? Could I use it to create a structure for a keynote speech? And actually, I feel that as long as I'm not asking it to attempt to do the creative aspect, which is, you know, what's the integrity of the thing? What are you saying? What is your viewpoint? Then basically getting an AI to do a lot of the legwork that doesn't really involve a lot of creativity and is actually just a bit of a grind, then I think it could be quite useful. It's obviously the looming threat, I think, for a lot of folk is that we define ourselves by our work a lot of the time. And here we have a technology which promises or threatens, depending on how you look at it, to basically eradicate a large proportion of the labour that is required to produce goods, services of all kinds. And so at first, in a society where we're very much encouraged to define ourselves by our work, this can seem quite threatening. But if we actually break our jobs down, whatever they might be, then sometimes actually for me, someone in the creative industries and publishing and the arts and stuff like that, I would say like 50, 60% of what I do is quite laborious, doesn't require a great deal of thought, just requires a lot of endurance, editing stuff, coming up with structures for stuff, try to find the themes in things. Whereas I could just instruct an AI, analyze this document, tell me what the themes are, and then I could go ahead and move straight into the creative process. How it works for other industries where people are essentially maybe being made obsolete by another industrial revolution, that's where, this idea of universal basic income or universal basic services comes into play in terms of what do people do when there are no jobs? How do we redefine ourselves in that post-job era? And these are fascinating questions and terrifying questions. But to sum it up, any time there has been a radical technological revolution, right? And I'm talking about go way back thousands of years when people started using cups, people started using cutlery, people started writing things on paper, the printing press, radio, television, all of these technological advances were preceded by an element of technophobia, right? Where there were moral panics, fears. Oh well, your memory's going to get worse if you write things down, because then how you won't need to retain anything in your mind, and you'll get forgetful. And I'm sure with every subsequent advance, there have been similar fears, anxieties. The interesting thing about this is that it seems to be a kind of locomotive that's steaming ahead of its own volition. There are just too many incentives for it to be developed. So much like the internet, much like the printing press and so on and so forth, it's not really a case of can we stop it? It's a case of how do we adapt to it, how do we make it work for us, and how do we put in certain regulations that restrict if we're falling into the wrong hands. That was a pretty layman answer, but that's sort of where I'm coming from on it. I'm curious, I'm open to it, and I just hope that the governments of the world don't miss the boat the way they did with Facebook and Twitter and all of these other social media sites, in terms of they need to really be in about this just now, talking to the people who understand it, making sure that the incentives there to create something that can be of benefit to society and humankind and the planet, rather than another tool for exploitation and value extraction, which obviously it could absolutely be used for. Hope that was okay as an answer. Thanks for your question. Take it easy.